Good evening. I'm Jessica Layton in New York, and we are coming on the air with some breaking news from Washington, D.C. and the White House Correspondents Dinner, where President Trump and other high-ranking White House officials have been evacuated from the Washington Hilton after loud noises were heard in the lobby or close to the ballroom. This is happening right now. This is video taken from the White House Correspondents' Dinner just a short time ago, where witnesses described hearing what sounded like gunshots coming from a room near the ballroom where the president was supposed to speak at the White House Correspondents' Dinner tonight. He and other high-ranking officials swiftly evacuated. Secret Service has been sweeping the room and the hotel since this happened. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is at that dinner. He is live on the phone for us to tell us exactly what has happened and what's going on. Gabe, what can you tell us?
Jessica, it's a scene of utter confusion here on the ballroom here at the Washington Hilton. Just a few minutes ago, President Trump and several high-ranking officials, cabinet members, as you mentioned, were suddenly evacuated by Secret Service as this Correspondents Association dinner was just starting to get underway. The president had been introduced, as Star-Spangled Banner had played. There were brief remarks by the president of the White House Correspondents Association welcoming the president, welcoming the Trump administration officials, and also the thousands of journalists in the room. And then we had settled down for dinner, the salad course, as we awaited the president's remarks. All of a sudden, Secret Service agents burst into the room, the different portions of the room, gathering around the cabinet-level officials. The president was evacuated, along with the vice president, the first lady, of course, as well, and other officials from the Trump administration. It's unclear exactly what led to that evacuation. We have spoken with one witness who said that they heard what they believe sounded like at least one or two gunshots from an adjacent room to the ballroom, possibly above the ballroom. It's not, we don't have confirmed that there were in fact gunshots, but that is what, according to one witness, heard very distinctly what they said appeared to sound like gunshots. Others have described it as vibrations. I can tell you from my vantage point, I was sitting at the same table with Secretary Burgum, Doug Burgum. He was approached very quickly by Secret Service agents, told to get on the ground. Other journalists in the vicinity, as well as myself, also got on the ground. And I did not hear any gunshots or anything that sounded like them. It was just an incredibly sudden interruption to the evening. This is, of course, a very significant night here in Washington. The first time that President Trump, as president, has attended this dinner. There was a lot of high anticipation to what he would say. But again, this evening interrupted very, very suddenly, and we're just now trying to sort out what happened and whether this dinner will continue now that the president has been evacuated, Jessica.
Gabe, thank you. Please stand by. We want to mention we understand the president at one point was on his way back to the White House after those panicky moments. It's unclear whether he made it back yet or if he plans to return. As we were told, the dinner would be resuming tonight. Let's go to NBC's Garrett Hake, who is outside the Washington Hilton for us right now. Garrett, what are you seeing and what are you hearing?
Well, I can tell you there's enormous confusion right now about exactly what's taking place inside the ballroom and in the blocks around it here in Northwest Washington, D.C. I'm at the intersection of 19th and Florida Avenue, about a block and a half now south of the hotel. This is the perimeter to which the police and Secret Service have pushed everyone back. We came outside immediately when the ballroom was beginning to be evacuated. I think at this point it's clear that the president has been evacuated from the ballroom, but not necessarily from the property at large. The Beast limousine, or at least one of them, we still spotted outside as we were coming out. There is still a significant both police and Secret Service presence here outside the Washington Hilton Hotel, with anyone who essentially got up out of the ballroom asked to keep moving and get outside. This is a highly secured event. When the president attends, you have a massive Secret Service presence here. The Metropolitan Police Department, that's Washington's local police department, is here, as are a host of other federal agencies who participate in securing events at which the president and vice president both participate, which are few and far between. We saw them in force when those reports of gunshots first came out. I could hear some noise loudly from, it sounded like the room above us, which would make sense with the reporting of some kind of disturbance in the lobby. And then we saw the tactical unit. That's not the men and women in suits, but the folks in SWAT-like body armor and heavy weaponry coming into the room, very quickly covering the president and first lady, then subsequently checking on, covering, and removing the other Secret Service and Capitol Police protectees who were in the room, the Speaker of the House, much of the congressional leadership. It is extraordinarily rare outside of a State of the Union to have this many of the country's top officials under one roof. As Gabe pointed out, it's the first time in his years as president that President Trump has attended, both he and the vice president, quickly, again, escorted from the room. There is no indication of any harm that has come to them, or I should hasten to add, anyone else who was attending this event. Again, no indication at this moment of anyone at the event or at the hotel who was injured in whatever this event was. And so out here, we've got a lot of journalists, a lot of people who live in the neighborhood, a lot of folks who are trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. The White House Correspondents Association says this event will continue. I can tell you.
Back into the ballroom. Garrett, I have to cut you off. I'm so sorry. We are glad that you and our other correspondents are okay. Let's head over now to NBC News Now. We will conclude this special report here on NBC Network right now. We will have a full wrap-up tomorrow on Sunday Today with Willie Geist. I'm Jessica Layton. Thanks for watching. Now over to NBC News Now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.